Up to 2020, the Nissan Sentra used an older MR20DE engine that was a very simple and super reliable engine with literally nothing that could cause premature damage. In 2020, Nissan presented the 8th generation of the Sentra in the US and the new engine. It still has 2 liters of displacement and is based on the same block, but it's more technological and you can guess a little less reliable. So what changed? First of all, this engine got the direct injection. It gives it more power and efficiency, but makes it prone to carbon buildup. So once every 40-60,000 miles, you will need to clean the intake valves and pay for that. Secondly, both camshafts now have phasers, so the engine has variable valve timing, and it would be fine if the chain could last a little longer. At about 100k miles, the chain will start rattling in these engines, especially if you experimented with oil quality or change intervals, but when you replace the chain, you may need to look at phasers. Unfortunately, this makes the repair bill pretty bad if something goes wrong. But I should say that phasers themselves are more or less good in these engines. Then the engine still doesn't have hydraulic lifters. The thing is that the MR20DD engine model was engineered in 2010 and used for many years in European Nissan and Renault cars before it appeared under the hood of the Sentra in the US. So the engine is not that new and it has several weird solutions like the absence of valve lifters. And there is the EGR valve, which is pretty faulty. Again, this was the thing in 2010 when EGR systems only started implementing in gasoline engines, and unfortunately the 2-liter Nissan engine still has this issue of coolant leaking into the EGR at random age and mileage. The engine is not turbocharged and it has 149 horsepower and 146 pound-feet of torque. A lot of owners write in their reviews that the car feels underpowered, but it depends on what you compare it with. Compared to a Ferrari, yes, it's certainly underpowered. Compared to any close competitor on the market, I wouldn't say this engine feels that bad when you drive the Sentra. One more issue develops at about 120-130,000 miles. These engines start burning some oil, and it's not a bad issue, but if you own such a car, you should keep an eye on the oil level. If the level comes near the minimum mark on the dipstick, the oil pressure may start dropping and you will have issues with lubrication. Repairing the oil consumption problem is not worth it in most cases. You will need to replace the oil rings on pistons, and the labor will probably cost more than the engine itself. So owners just keep driving it till it drops, and the main thing is to remember to top up oil from time to time. One more very common issue is the unstable idle RPM. This happens because the throttle body gets dirty, and in most cases you may solve this by using a high quality throttle body cleaner spray. Overall, these engines are made to last about 160-180,000 miles. After that, oil consumption becomes pretty bad and the efficiency drops. I recommend using OEM oil and filters to prolong the life of this engine. Also, the perfect oil change interval is about 6,000 to 8,000 miles or 1 year, whatever comes first. Prolonged oil change intervals will affect the chain tensioner and the phasers, and may eventually lead to extremely expensive repairs. Also, if you want to drive this engine for a long time, you should pay attention to the condition of the chain. As a rule, they are pretty stretched at 100,000 miles, and it makes sense to replace them at this point to avoid chain jumping. For me, the most awful problem is that this car comes with only one type of transmission, and this is the Jetco CVT, one of the least reliable automatic transmissions in the world, and you will probably need to replace it at about 90,000 miles. Earlier, the Sentra was offered with a manual transmission that was extremely reliable, but not popular in the US. For now, you have no alternatives, and this is sad. But it's still not a problem with the engine. Other than that, this is a Nissan engine that is based on older technologies. While this creates some minor problems, this means that the engine won't fail too early. And in my opinion, this is a pretty good solution for the budget-friendly car like the Sentra.